What's going on, Nerd Nation? It's friendly neighborhood Nerd King Mac Taylor here today. Well, we're introing this podcast. I'm still getting used to doing the intros for these. So basically, today we're going to be talking about Scream 4 and 5. We're finishing up the Scream franchise. We're heading into something new. Going to take a step away from horror and do some comedies and just some other movies that I want to talk about in depth. That we've been doing horror for a little over a year now, and it's time to just kind of get a little breath of fresh air, and then maybe we dive right back into it. So basically, the Scream franchise has been a blasty blast to do. It really has. I love the franchise. I had so much fun watching it all for Scream 5, and I really enjoyed Scream 5, as you'll see with this podcast. Cole and I were very excited to finish it, though, just because it had, with things that had come up, now that we're starting to get back on schedule, we were ready to just finish the old and move on to the new. Speaking of other new things that are happening, a weekly review series getting ready to come out soon, where I talk about the movies I watch in a week. I'm going to try to keep it at 7, because, right now with my schedule being as tight as it is, it's kind of hard to watch more than one a day. I got, the Reality Vomit podcast is getting a revamping, a new co-host, and kind of restarting. I'm going to be deleting a lot of the old Reality Vomit content because it's just not up to par with what I can do now. And also I want to talk about things that I've already talked about on it, but from a fresher perspective. And just, I was so new to podcasting and the whole idea of it. Then now I would like to think I'm better at it and would like to kind of start anew with the Reality Vomit podcast. We're getting ready to play catch up major with the Wrestle Vomit podcast. But besides your ear holes being filled with the content, we're working on a show. We won't go into any more details yet until things have been filmed and kind of start getting edited together. Then we'll start kind of the publicity for it. But right now, I don't want to say too much too early on. But there's a lot. Trust me, guys. There's a lot going on between stuff that I'm working on for podcasts, for projects that are leaning more toward my creativity, for reviews, and then also I work a full-time job. So it's it's been a big trying to balance everything has been rough, but I'm think I'm starting to really figure it out. The room setup is starting to come together. This wall over here is going to soon be poster filled, and there's parts of it that you can't see that are also pretty decked out. But the shelves are back up. These shelves are up. I got the figures going over here as well. So, we're starting to put things back together. It's starting to look like a recording studio in here, but it also is my bedroom that I'm in a lot. So, I can't make as much of the space as I would like to. So with that being said, enough about what's going on with me in the studio. Let's go talk about Scream 4 and 5 as we finish out one of my favorite franchises of all time. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to the Film Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, we're your hosts, Mac Taylor and Cole Selby. And today, wrapping up a long chapter, a lot longer chapter than it was supposed to take to finish the Scream franchise. We're in Scream 4 and 5 today, and then we will be on to something different. So we're starting with Scream 4 from 2011. Up until January of this year, this was the last Scream movie that was made. Cole, what are your recollections of this film in the past?
A lot of bloom. A lot of bloom. It's a very bright film, very bright. It was mostly fun. I liked the cast in this one compared to the other ones. Some of the Kirby is a great example. Amazing character. Yeah, some good ones. It was Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I don't have too many like good or bad memories about it. Watching it back in the day. It was just like another Scream movie for me. Then going back to it though, it's really cool, really nice. And the that and the the twist also was a pretty good one, if a little weird to me at the time, but it was a yeah, overall, like, I mean, good memories, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this one for me, I mean, I think 2011, we were
Mm.
like seventh grade,
So, something like, yes, yeah,
somewhere around there.
yeah, still like middle school.
Yeah, seventh or eighth grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, oh my God, like there's a new Scream. I didn't see it in theaters because I still wasn't quite
Mhm.
old enough to go.
Yeah.
But I remember like there being hype for this to come to DVD so I could finally watch it.
Yeah.
And like when I did, I think I rented it. I watched it like 6 times or something like in a weekend. Like I just kept going with it. And like at the time I was like, oh, this is like some next level shit.
Mhm.
Obviously my taste in horror has changed a little bit,
Yeah.
but this is kind of sentimental to me.
Mhm.
And it is a much different Scream movie because it's it's the 2010s horror version of
Yeah.
the Scream movie.
Yeah.
It is very brightly lit.
Hmm. Yes.
uh that is definitely something I know. Like it just the filming style of horror
Yeah.
changed a lot, and you could very much
Hmm.
tell.
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
Even in Scream 5, which we'll talk about, it has its own, it looks like a movie that was shot in 2022 or 2020 or whenever it was
Yeah.
shot. So Scream 4, we start with because the opening of Scream is always going to be important.
Hmm.
And this one, I mean, I think this one is better than Scream 3's opening, but not better than 1 or 2's.
Yeah.
Because we get basically the openings to stab movies, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I I like kind of like the the little meta thing in this. I like to keeping this thing going.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like how it does. And then when we actually get to the real part of the movie, we still kind of in the back of our minds like, but is this the actual thing?
Hmm.
Because like we start out with like, and it's always like 2 blonde girls
Yeah.
who are joking about the Saw movies, which at the time, were like
Hmm.
the big horror
Yeah.
franchise. And they were talking about like the torture porn, quote unquote,
Hmm.
era of horror, which was like Saw and Hostel,
Yeah.
and where it was all about the gore and
Hmm.
I mean, essentially slasher films have always been about the kills, but like
Yeah.
it was about body torture.
Hmm.
uh then we get the standard creepy call and like a
Yeah.
ding dong ditch, but then there's 2 killers randomly and it's like boom,
Yep.
stab 6.
Yep.
And then we get a girl stabbing a girl over horror movies and then boom, it's stab 7.
Yeah.
It was cool, it was interesting, and then we
Yeah.
finally we get to the actual people in this movie.
Yeah.
uh I also like how they're talking about like someone snapping and like they do like a soda can, like they pop,
Hmm.
she pops the soda like with it. I thought that was a fun
Yeah.
little thing.
That's fun.
And they're basically just talking about how the Stab franchise ran off the rails, as
Yeah.
most
Like,
horror movie franchises do.
yeah. Talking about like time travel
Yeah,
and
which was
stuff.
like the 5th one.
Yeah.
I would love to see them put out the Stab movies, even if they're
Yeah.
all like little short films or something, just like,
Yeah.
because in the 5th movie, see like there's a box set of it. I'm like, can we just make the
Yeah.
Stab
That'd be
movies?
that,
Because
that'd
I
be
would
fun.
love to see that,
Yeah. That'd be fun.
especially the time travel one. That's
Yeah. I want to see
fucking
when it
awesome.
got off the rails, and really only it took 5 movies to get there. That's a pretty good record.
Your track record.
Yeah.
Uh, so they do the standard like investigate the noise, and we
Mhm.
get the creepy phone call, but the phone call was just her friend upstairs. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe not in great taste to do this in Woodsboro, where
Yeah.
but like, this is standard like friend pranking.
Yeah.
And then from, now that we're back to the two killer formula, after taking a brief break from that with Scream 3, we can assume that this phone call was probably made by Charlie.
Yeah.
And there will be points. I mean, nothing is confirmed, but there are things that where you can probably assume it's Charlie, or you can probably assume it's Jill, depending on where the other one is or is doing in correlation to the scene. So, but I think this one was Charlie here in the beginning.
Yeah.
Then Marnie gets tossed through a window.
Love it.
And then we get the chase upstairs. And a garage door reference where he goes to close the garage door on her, but garage doors have safety features.
Yeah.
So it just like kind of bumps her and then comes back up, because that's how shit works.
Yeah.
So I like how they reference like a kill that people probably shat on for some time.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And then we get the classic, slash of the knife to the opening scene. So all in all, decent opening. It's just not like the first opening is just so tense and good and well done.
It is.
And Drew Barrymore.
And
the second one is cool because of the movie theater aesthetic.
Oh yeah.
But this one has a cool, meta Scream way of doing it. It's just too many things are going on for it to be like iconic, right?
Yeah.
Because the first one is just so simple in concept, but brilliant in execution.
Yeah.
But again, not that I disliked it. It's just that you can't hit that original. You just can't do it.
Yeah, you can't.
So Sid's back in Woodsboro to promote a book. This time she's written the book.
Yeah. Yep. And with all the dramatizations.
Yes, she just and her book is more about surviving your past traumas and like conquering them and moving on with your life. It's not about
actually help people a little bit, maybe.
Exactly. And Gail and Dewey are married in Woodsboro, which is funny because at this point, Courtney Cox, David Arquette had just separated.
Yeah.
So it's slightly disaligned with how their real life was. So Dewey's the sheriff now. He's the big boy in town.
Oh yeah. He deserves it for the shit he went through.
Yeah. He's given up the Hollywood agent life.
Yeah.
And then we meet, Kirby and the new teens, like she's speeding and he kind of scolds her a little bit for speeding.
Yeah.
Good times. And then we see Trevor's the bad boy, who's going to be our red herring character who we don't really develop enough to give a shit about him being the red herring character.
Yeah.
Because Billy and Stu, we spent, Billy, we pretty much were like, yeah, that one, that guy.
Yeah.
But Stu, we spent a lot of time with, and with Trevor, he's mostly around. We talk about the potential of him being there.
Yeah,
he's not actually there, and when he is, he doesn't have that he's not Matthew Lillard who just exudes charisma.
Yeah.
So
yes, it seems like kind of a little forced to make him
very much an actor you would cast in a 2010s movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy looks like he was a model. Yeah. And they were like, hey, you should try acting, but no one taught him how to act.
Yeah.
So here we are, Yeah. And Jill is Sid's cousin. Don't know why you'd still live in Woodsboro. When you're related to the person who everyone is always talking about because of the shit that happened in this town.
Yeah.
And Jill gets the creepy phone call, which he puts on speaker.
Yeah.
And Kirby almost gets them T-boned because she's just paying more attention to the phone call than driving. It's all you get, you could listen.
Yeah.
You don't have to face the conversation.
I hear with my eyes.
It's like every time in a horror movie, like something comes up, everyone just forgets how to drive.
Yeah.
And then we also meet Deputy Hicks, who is
Mm.
thirsty for Dewey.
Oh yeah. And them lemon squares.
Yes, a lot of references to Lemon Square is going to be in these movies. And Gail essentially is like now a fiction writer.
Yeah.
She's trying desperately to like settle down and like just be happy with this small town life, but it's Gail.
Yeah.
She can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. She was caught up in that, high speed, intense kind of reporting style for too long.
And now she can't even think about like what to write about. She's just like she thrives off of the journalism lifestyle, and that's always gonna be in her.
Yeah.
But she's trying, in the last movie, Dewey like went out there for her, and now she's come back here for him.
Yeah.
Trying to make it work. We also meet Robbie, who, in this modern era is vlogging this life itself.
Yep. Like right at the turn where this shit was like really gonna starting to pick up steam. Like this was around the time where YouTube was starting to get like noticeable,
and vlogging became just
vlogging.
Like the standard.
Yeah, it is kind of funny looking at it now because like that's like normal now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
which then you're like, oh, what a quirky character. Now you're like,
Yeah.
every douchebag with a camera does this on YouTube and Instagram and all that shit. I mean, it's hard to believe this movie was like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That really hit me hard when I was like, fuck, that was like, 11 years ago. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's oof.
So yeah, Charlie and Robbie are essentially Randy split into two characters.
Yeah.
And Robbie's more like the dorky one. Charlie's like the cooler one of the group, and he's also, he's also into Kirby, which is like a huge part of his character.
Yeah.
And Jill has apparently been dodging Trevor because he cheated on her, and she doesn't want to take him back, which is like standard high school drama.
Yeah.
And Gail and Sid reunite here, and they're a bit tense still.
Yeah.
Because again, they're not really friends. They pretty much only see each other when this shit goes down.
Yeah. Like
so usually it's a bad sign. Yeah.
I think they would know a little.
So Dewey shows up, finds the killer's phone. And Gail's like, what's going on? And he's like, it's a need to know. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I'm always like with you on these things.
Yeah.
Which she has a point.
Yeah.
Plus the reporters are going to find out anyway. Like, trust your wife.
Yeah.
Who's like been through this.
Yeah.
And the phone was found in the trunk of Sid's car. So now she has to stay in town because everyone's a suspect.
Yeah.
Cue Randy. And we can assume that Charlie was the one that put the phone in her trunk as Jill was with the group, doing things. So Charlie did a lot of heavy lifting here in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we meet Rebecca, the publicist. And she's living, this is her shot. She's got this big story she's like right in the middle of, and she can capitalize and make some fucking money off of.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dead teens.
Yeah. Like
Sidney Prescott, money. Also, every student just gets like a group text at the same time about the fact that two of their classmates died.
Do they just have like a group chat? And
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why? Like, I assume that Charlie or Jill set this up to where like it would send, but like you had every single person's phone number in the entire school.
That's And this
Like,
that's not a small place. Not
yeah.
really.
Also, so it's like, so you went around and talked to every single person at some point and got their phone number, or like you did a lot of work just for that
Yeah.
one reaction.
Yeah.
So the news obviously goes crazy because like the second you were like,
Yeah.
"Hey, a teenager died," and you're like, blah, blah,
Oh
blah,
yeah.
blah. Sydney, how do you feel, Sydney? It's it's classic Scream stuff that the news media just is fucking insane.
Cindy, you're here and someone died.
Yeah, how does it make you feel? Hey, your mom was fucking murdered. How was that?
Remember that? Remember when your psycho boyfriend tried to kill you? Starts bringing up all the traumas.
When you got the other boyfriend who you should have trusted, but he fucking died. Like throwing it all out there.
Oh yeah.
And Judy and Gail get real tense because Judy's always trying to push Gail out of like, because she's like, "You're not a cop," and Gail's like, "Would you back the fuck up, Judy?"
Yeah.
She has the line where she's like, "I literally wrote the book on this," and I'm like, "Well, you exaggerated the book.
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't write the most truthful book on this."
Yeah.
And Dewey wants Gail out of it, which I get.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want your wife to get murdered, but at the same time, like, you know, she's just gonna do it.
Yeah.
And they also like, so the teens are like openly talking about like calls and likelihood of surviving, like a modern horror flick, like how it works nowadays as compared. You know, you gotta have that in a Scream movie. You gotta talk about the new age horror.
Yeah, I do kind of like how like the meta just evolves like through the films, and they always just kind of point those out.
And then Rebecca has this interaction with Gail where she's just low key just shitting on her for not being famous anymore. It's a fun interaction where Gail's like, "Fuck you. Like, who are you?" I just met you and I low key hate you. So Trevor pulls a Billy, and while like, you know, Sid is like with her aunt and Jill, and they're kind of like gathering together, talking about pet, and her aunt's like low key jealous of her. She's like, "Yo, I have trauma too. Like, my sister died. No one asked me." I'm like, all right, but like, Sydney's had like what, 3 different
like
traumas now.
She like she has every excuse to kind of complain.
Like, and
how about you go write a book about your traumas?
Write your fucking memoirs. I mean, copies you sell. God damn. Like, but Trevor sneaks in Jill's window, and it's literally just like meant to be like a shot for shot representation of that first film. And Sid accidentally like walks in on it, and she's like, you know, red flags.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You'd better get out of here." And he's like, "Cool." And she's like, lock your fucking window. And then like when she goes out, Judy's just like lurking in the hallway, like in the dark.
Yeah.
So Sid comes out and she's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" It's like, what the fuck? Like, he's like, we were in that one play together, you know, you know, you and the people who were more involved in the trauma. I was just at that party and left that one time. It's like, okay, I know you're just trying to tie Judy in to but like, that is a really weird way of doing that. Like, and I know they're probably trying to make it seem like, could she be the kid? But no, she's not. Like, she's too quirky to be the killer. The quirky ones aren't the killers, typically. Usually you can see a little bit of a psychotic break in these people. But I think it's such a funny scene because she's just like lurking, and Sydney's like more scared of her than she is like Ghostface at this point. You know, she's a bit of a Sid fan. Everyone's a bit of a Sid fan. So we meet the deputies. One is Perkins, played by Anthony Anderson. So like I see him pop up, I'm like, oh hey, that guy. Cops not great at their jobs. They
No.
not great at securing perimeters. But I get it. You're like small town,
I
you
mean,
know,
I mean,
cops.
Dewey was all just business. He was ready just to be like Dewey.
These guys aren't trying to be sheriff. They're just like,
No, no, yeah,
we weren't really meant for hardcore murder investigations.
yeah.
Shaun of the Dead reference as Kirby and Jill are watching that movie. And Olivia calls from across the street. And Jill tries to make a creepy phone call, but she can't do the voice. Doesn't have the voice changer. At least, because she doesn't have her killer costume on.
Yeah.
And the killer is using Trevor's phone. But it's like, come on, the killer always clones somebody's phone.
Yeah.
It's if you get a phone call from someone and it's the killer's voice, just assume their phone got cloned. Even if they turn out to be the killer, that is not the piece of evidence that incriminates them. And he's like, how's Shaun of the Dead going? And like, how did you know? And then there's this thing where he's like, I'm in your closet. And great scene. This is probably one of the better put together tense scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
Because then Kirby like gets up to look in the closet and there's nothing. And she's like, oh, you fucking liar. And he's like, I didn't say your closet. He pops out across the street in Olivia's room and just brutally stabs the shit out. Like, gory.
Oh, yeah.
With that kill. And there's nothing they can do. They just scream as she gets like thrown through a window. And Sid's immediately like, let me run into that house.
Yeah.
Even though Olivia's dead and the killer's still in there, I'm going to run in there because that's just what I do.
Yep. Because
you show me a crime scene and I'm going to sprint right in there.
I've survived 3 times already. I can do it again.
Yeah, you fucking watch. So yeah, and then she comes in, the phone rings, and she answers. I said, Sid, God damn it. Stop answering phones that aren't yours.
Yes.
And also, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of this?
Like, you would think that she would understand that this is just the game that they want.
Yeah. And you're not going to catch him. You're probably going to get chased at some point. Just save yourself the troubles. Wait till the police who are supposed to be there already get there and secure the scene and move forward. Like, you're not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, she answers the phone and he's like, you're going to die later. Now's not the time. This is my movie. And then he slashes Jill's arm. And then Sid kicks the hell out of the person in the ghost face costume. And obviously this is probably Charlie because Jill is right fucking there. Yeah. So has to be Charlie. And Trevor runs in like an idiot. It's like, dude, no one thought you were here.
Yeah.
You don't just go running in a crime scene after the killer is gone.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, what happened? I was just in the area. Unrelated to the murders that were just happening. Like,
yeah.
That is the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
So the deputies missed him going in, obviously.
Yeah.
And Gail, she's like, you know what? You're not going to let me sleuth? I'm a sleuth of my own. Hey, kid with camera. She's like, how about, you guys help me and I don't know, like talk to your film class. And they're like, could you get Sydney? Because that would be much more interesting. And she's like, all right, fuck you guys. Everybody always wants to talk to Sydney. And meanwhile, Rebecca heard Sydney trauma, so she's come to Leech.
Yeah.
And she told Sid, we could write like 7 books.
Yeah.
And Sid's like, nah, I just did the 1 book for me. Yeah. That's it. I'm not a writer. Also, there's murders happening, so we should probably focus on that.
Yeah.
And she's like, fine, you're washed. Fuck you. You're gonna be a nothing, a victim for life. So Sid's like, yeah, you're fired.
Yeah. Who's the victim now?
Yeah. And then Rebecca enters a sketchy parking garage and is told, you're the message. And it's like, girl, just get to your fucking car. Why are you waiting around trying to figure out what's happening? Like, get to it and get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
But the car won't start.
You can't write a book on your trauma if you don't survive the trauma.
Exactly. Because the killer essentially was fucking with the car.
Yeah.
And then she gets out of the car. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, call someone, have them come get you.
Yeah, I know you have a phone.
Yeah, you probably have fucking AAA. You did out there. So yeah, she then goes to make a run for it. The locked door, I might add, because those doors are usually locked because it's a remote access door.
Yeah.
And then she gets stabbed. Meanwhile, Dewey's having like one of those like sheriff press conferences we always see. He finally gets to do one.
Yeah.
And is interrupted by her body being flung out of the parking garage and onto a van. Like they're literally just having a conversation and everyone's just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
It's also one of the more memorable scenes from this movie.
Yeah.
It's just like body flung on like out of a parking garage. It's great. So yeah, poor Dewey can't even have a speech.
He says something always happens.
Meanwhile, at film club, Sid's like, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But whatever, I'm here. And they're like, listen, filming the crimes, that's the next step. That's the 2011 thing to do is, we fucking film the murders. And after them, we put them online because that's what people do online. They want to see like dark, crazy shit, like murders from the killer's perspective. That's fucking, the 2000s were all about extreme with an X.
Yeah.
This is all about filming live trauma.
Yeah.
Fucking on the internet. That is, I guess, the next
little
step.
Maybe. It's very, very niche.
But it's funny to look back on this,
Yeah.
And then now, this is technically like a reboot. It's you can't make a sequel because people don't like that. But you got to reboot it. The original trilogy is done. It's over. We're rising from the ashes. So the reboot rules, you got to have the kills. They got to be fucking gory now. Like they got to be brutal. Even though in the first one, Drew Barrymore was gutted and hung from a tree. Yeah. So it's not like we went soft. I guess Roman was more of just like a pokey, stabby guy.
I mean, like it was a Screams 2 and 3, I think had to dial it back a bit, so.
But the first Scream, Billions 2 were fucking people up. So
that was pretty brutal. Really
essentially, we're just getting back to basics.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, yeah, and the next step would be, to do like the first film and end at the big party. Like that Stabathon we have every single year where we show all the stab movies and everyone does that. Yeah. And Sid's like, maybe you just shouldn't have that party. And they're like, well, they can't cancel. We've already sent out the invites and got the place. It's this, planning. We just can't stop it now. It's too much momentum.
Too much momentum. You seem pretty calm about this.
Yeah. He's very much like, it is what it is. And so Sid tries to confront Jill about being like the new her.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because like this whole movie we're fed like, Jill's the next like main character and when we get the big reveal at the end, which I think was a very nice twist on this. Mm-hmm. But Sid's basically like, you're gonna be me, and things are gonna be fucking weird for a while. Like, you just
Yeah.
I better get used to that. Meanwhile, we go to Stabathon,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially just a bunch of teens in a barn watching the stab movies on a projector, which is cool.
Yeah.
Wish something that cool happened when we were in high school.
Yeah.
And Trevor shows up, even though he hates those movies. Ooh.
Ooh.
Uh, Kirby is like, hey, do you care if I go to Stabathon? I know this shit's fucked up and everything, but like, I really want to go because I really need to not focus on murder right now.
Yeah.
And Gail's incognito because she has a ghost face mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just weird to see her wearing one.
Yeah.
And she plants cameras. Kind of like the first one, set up cameras to watch the party.
Yeah.
Except there's no 30-second delay on the
Yeah.
cameras. And Gail's feeling the sleuthing. She's enjoying herself now. Wish the murders didn't happen, but she's getting it done. She's back in the groove.
Mm-hmm.
Gail's feeling Gail again. So the killer then starts covering all the cameras. And Gail's like, fuck, Dewey, get here right now. Like, shit's going down. And Dewey arrives to see Gail attacked on camera because the killer is making the movie. So Gail's stabbed. And the cops are kind of discussing the tropes of cops in movies, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're like, yeah, I guess in older movies, you would be the one to die first. But I guess, because that's too cliche, then I would have to be the one to die first because then that would be what they were least expecting. So unless they were expecting that to happen, then I guess it would be you again. Yeah, Gail is actually stabbed this time. Usually she's just one that gets shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, you knew the killer was making the movie because Charlie said that.
Yeah.
They were going to film everything. You should have been expecting that. Meanwhile, Haas finds an open window, which is never good. And Perkins does like a little jump scare where he pretends to be dead. He's like, I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
But then Haas is stabbed, and Perkins is stabbed like in the face.
Yeah.
And slowly, like, it's probably how it would go. Get stabbed in the brain takes a while for shit shuts down. It's not instant. It's not like in some horror movies where it's like poke and death.
Yeah.
I like how he's like swinging, but he says, what does he say? Like, fuck Bruce Willis or something right before he dies?
Yeah, I think so. I think he says fuck Bruce Willis.
Which is kind of funny, but also a little cheesy.
Yeah.
But it makes sense coming from Anthony Anderson. He was in the Scary Movie franchise, so of course you got to give him like a comedy line at the end.
Yeah.
And essentially, the killer tells Sid like, "Hey, turn on the TV and you're gonna get the teaser for the film." It's like, fuck you and your film.
Yeah.
Jokes. So Jill's missing out with Kirby. The killer plays like a wind chime prank, essentially, where like they look and they think they see the killer, but it's just the reflection in the wind chime because he's actually behind them. It's like, if you see it on the wind chime, wouldn't you just assume he'd be behind you? You wouldn't assume that he'd be standing in front of you, like reflecting on the wind chime in front of you. Wouldn't make any sense. But Sid's aunt stabbed through the door. She really didn't get a lot of character development, I think her part was bigger in the original script, and they were just kind of like, fuck it. No one really cares. Meanwhile, Deputy Hicks arrives. And Sid dips to save Jill. She's like, I gotta save the me of the past. Meanwhile, Kirby, Jill, Robbie, Charlie, and Trevor meet up. Well, Trevor wasn't invited, but he showed up.
Yeah.
But he's like, Jill sent me a text. And she's like, I didn't text him, but who could have done it? But it really was her because she's trying to get him there.
Yeah.
Charlie's still hitting on Kirby with the whole trivia thing. Meanwhile, Robbie's worried about cops because he has literally just been collecting evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That does not make his. I mean, like Robbie films himself all the time, so it'd be
Yeah.
pretty easy to clear himself of murder
Yeah.
because he'd be like, "Hey, look at all my fucking footage I shoot all the time. Like, not once did I kill somebody on here."
Yeah.
Uh, so Trevor storms after Jill. Robbie's getting drunk to calm himself down. Classic, final acting.
Yeah.
Charlie and Kirby, they're about to get like intimate, and they're interrupted by Trevor, who just makes fun of them
Yeah.
and kind of third wheels it by like talking about movies and shit.
Yeah.
So Charlie storms off. He's actually going to kill Robbie. That's why he's leaving. But he's mad because he can't get laid. But really, he's got to stick to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So Trevor goes back to Jill. So Charlie attacks and kills Robbie, which is the fun little camera thing he does where it takes a second for him to realize there's Ghostface on the other side. And he's like, wait, you can't kill me. I'm gay. And it's like, oh, come on. Stop doing jokes. Like Robbie's death could have been really something better.
Yeah.
That is kind of the thing. Some of these characters would be more interesting if they were better fleshed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, though, Robbie's dead, killed by his best friend.
Yep.
So Robbie falls in front of Sid and the girls, so they know now. It's just like Randy, where he's like, you gotta show the danger. So there's like a little rooftop chase sequence, and Sydney still thinks she's trying to save Jill. But like, there's a scene where like they're on the roof, and Sid is waiting like on the other side. Like, of course the killer's gonna walk around.
Yeah.
They wouldn't just keep coming the same way when they know you're waiting for that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's only one other way to go. It's not like there's a lot of options up there. So killer comes around, surprises Sid. Kirby conflicted on letting Charlie back in the house.
Yeah.
And Charlie is attacked and tied up a la the first film in the beginning with the trivia and the boyfriend tied up.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirby wins trivia because she's a big fan.
Yeah.
But she fails a peeping Tom question, which is a bit of a fuck you question because like everyone knows Psycho popularized. It may not have been the first film to do it, but it popularized the genre. No one was like going into like a big franchise inspired by peeping Tom. So, that's like a fuck you question where it's like, okay, it's like when someone says, well, actually, it's like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
And then like the last one, she just starts naming off a bunch of remakes. It's like, let him finish the goddamn question. Maybe you'll know the exact answer. Like, still go interrupting people. So Kirby saves Charlie, but he stabs her because he's actually one of the killers.
Yeah.
But he's clearly conflicted because he does actually like Kirby, but he's already like way too deep in this.
Yeah.
Can't just double back now. So Charlie attacks Sid, and the second killer stabs her, and it's Jill, which is a great twist.
Yeah.
The person who we've hyped up is like the new Sydney. She's, she's the innocent girl, played by an actress you would expect to play that character, but she's the fucking killer. She's the mastermind at that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was a good swerve.
It was.
And basically they filmed the murders and want to frame Trevor, who they tied up in the and he's wearing the exact same clothes as Sydney's dad was in the first movie, which is kind of like a fun call, like a literal callback.
Yeah.
So Jill shoots him in the dick and then the head. It's like, wouldn't the cops be like, hey, who shot this guy in the dick? Like,
that's
doesn't seem like what would happen to a murderer.
Yeah.
And essentially they want to be Sid and Randy. That is essentially what they're going for here with the survival. Jill, a lot easier for her to fill that role because like the people have literally called her the new Sid. So yeah. But essentially this is all about fame and attention. She wants to step out of the shadow by creating her own murders to survive, which is like some real deep shit. Real deep. And then Jill kills Charlie because she basically wants to make it look like Trevor and Charlie were the Billy and Stu. So
Yeah.
he thought he was Randy, but he was really Stu all along.
Yeah.
He took one of those Facebook tests and he was expecting to get Randy, but he got Stu. Jill wants to be number one. She doesn't need loose ends.
Yeah.
And so Jill stabs Sid, thinks that's it. Then we get to see what the killer would do, because none of the killers got to the point where they could set up for the cops, essentially, where they could make it look like a thing. They always got stopped before they could do this part.
Yeah.
So we see what would happen, which again, very interesting, where she's like pulling her hair out with Trevor's hand. She stabs herself in the shoulder. She jumps through like a glass table, like she's beating the hell out of herself.
Yeah, it really is what it was, like kind of visceral. Just have her like put the knife on her and just run into the fucking wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only way to really make it look like someone forcefully stabbed you.
And then she even like lays down next to Sid, tries to like look the same.
Yeah, picturesque, like make it good for reporters.
And so like she gets so close to succeeding. She gets the officers carrying her out in a stretcher, the reporters, everyone's talking about how much of a hero she is.
Yeah.
And she's almost there.
Yep.
But then she's told in the hospital that Sid's still alive.
Yep.
So she's like, oh god damn it. So she gets out of her bed, goes to kill Sid essentially.
Yeah.
And then Gail and Dewey meet up and he's like, yeah, she was talking about you guys having matching wounds. And Gail's like, how did she know where I was stabbed?
Yeah.
That wasn't in the news report. And it's like, bum, bum, bum. Oh, yeah. So Jill's trying to strangle Sid, but like Loki gets her ass beat.
Yeah.
Like Sid's like, I've been here before. I've thrown down with some people bigger than you.
Yeah.
But she gets like fingered in the stab hole, which is never fun. Then Dewey gets beat the hell out of with the bedpan. Jill gets his gun, plans to kill all three, but Hicks shows up to save Gail. But gets shot. But everyone wears vests in these things. She's fine.
Yeah.
And Sid shock paddles Jill, which is like cool. That's a cool like. Yeah. And then Sid shoots Jill because she knows how this works. People get back up.
Yeah. I mean, it happened to her.
Yeah. And so like now Jill, we see like Jill's lifeless body as like clips play out of like, innocent girl survives murders, blah, blah, blah. And so like, she was this close to the fame she wanted, but she's never going to see it through because she's fucking dead because she messed with the wrong people.
Yep. She could have actually, followed through a little bit more on killing Sid. Not talking to Dewey as much probably would have helped.
Yeah, or made sure that Gail and Dewey were dead also.
Yeah, she slipped like
a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, slipped up just a little bit and it
got a little cocky there at the end.
Yeah.
So on to the trivia. This was the last film directed by Wes Craven before his death. And we'll talk about it, but I think the fifth one did a good job of being what a Scream movie is supposed to be. But it is, this is the last one where the guy because Wes Craven stuck with this franchise.
Yeah.
It's rare that a director is able to keep it going with his vision. So it was also the last one so far that was written by Kevin Williamson. So really, this was like the last one with like the original people getting it together. Deleted scenes state that Neil Prescott died in between Screams 3 and 4. So essentially, he just died of natural causes in between the movie, which would explain why he's not in this one.
Okay.
Talked about Arquette and Cox being separated during filming, but apparently things were still, friendly. It's not like it was a bad split. It was just like, things needed to change. Williamson clashed with the Weinsteins about the direction of the movie. So part of the movie was rewritten because basically Williamson doesn't budge on his scripts.
Yeah.
A time travel plot was a dig on Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street 5 pitch. This is also the movie where they use a CGI knife at certain points, and you can kind of tell. Also, the only Scream movie to not include the song Red Right Hand. Originally cast as Jill's mother was Lauren Graham from the Gilmore Girls.
Oh.
That would have been a much better casting. There were so many rewrites of the script, Hayden Panettiere threatened to quit if the script didn't quit changing. All the characters are archetypes of original characters, as we've discussed.
Yep. Kirby having like the best traits of really the best traits of oh crap, what I just blanked.
Well, Kirby is essentially Tatum.
Yeah.
Charlie is Stu.
Yeah.
Trevor is Billy, a less interesting one. Robbie is Randy. Olivia is other friend. I guess she's also
other friend.
Tatum. She's like the bubblier version of Tatum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also during this, Hayden Panettiere had a robber encounter at her house, and she waited on the roof till the cops got there. Emma Roberts was actually the only one who was a teenager during this. She was 18 at time of filming, where everyone else was in their 20s. Shane Dawson auditioned for the role of Robbie, but was turned down due to not being that great of an actor.
Yeah.
Selena Gomez was also considered for the role of Jill. This was intended to be a new trilogy, but was shut down basically because they were like, it didn't do as well as they thought it was going to do. And Dewey not stabbed in this movie.
No, he only got like kind of knocked in the noggin.
I mean, he got beat with the bedpan, so arguably worse. Familiar faces: Emma Roberts, obviously, American Horror Story, Scream Queens, We're the Millers, Hotel for Dogs, Unfabulous, Nancy Drew. She did a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. This was like in between her child acting and horror genre kick that she's been on lately. Yeah, this was like kind of what kicked that one over. Charlie, played by Rory Culkin, brother of Macaulay Culkin, in movies such as Mean Creek and Signs. Kirby, played by Hayden Panettiere from Nashville, Heroes, and Kingdom Hearts. Does a lot of voices in Kingdom Hearts. Cool. Robbie, played by Eric Knudsen from Saw 2, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Jericho. Haas, played by Adam Brody from Yoga Hosers, Cop Out, The OC, Thank You for Smoking. Perkins, played by the great Anthony Anderson from Scary Movie 3, Kangaroo Jack, Blackish, Law and Order, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, The Big Year, Malibu's Most Wanted, Barbershop, Urban Legends 2. Keeps going. Yep. Hicks, played by Marley Shelton from The Sandlot. She was fucking Wendy Peppercorn.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. You're looking it up. It's a fucking thing.
Okay. That's funny. I don't know why I find that funny, but
it threw me for a loop just because it's just like it was only a role of like what, a couple minutes, but it's the iconic part of that movie. So I'm like, that's fucking Wendy Peppercorn.
Wow.
Good for her.
Yeah.
It was definitely an early childhood crush of mine. And Rebecca, played by Allison Brie from Community. You can't not picture Annie from Community.
Yeah.
She was also in The Disaster Artist, BoJack Horseman, Glow, The Lego Movie, and Mad Men. This film received a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb, 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 52 out of 100 on Metacritic. I think a little low.
Yeah.
So, Cole, give me your final thoughts and opinions on Scream 4.
I did like the twist. I did like the little twist of Jill. That was cool. And really with her little basically like slave, just doing whatever she said at that point. With God damn it, what was the name again?
Charlie, the other
Charlie.
killer?
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie. Yeah, I did like how he just kind of like how like when Kirby comes out, saves him, and just goes, well, wham, stab. That was a little neat. I like that. I mean, it mostly is with the Jill thing, and the real visceral like beating yourself up at the end to set everything in motion, and really, I mean, looking back, you do kind of notice a little bit how she would kind of be it. Mostly cut just kind of like the other like red herrings, really, that they kind of place in. But yeah, I think it was better than like a 50 something. I think I'd give it like a 6.5 at the least. I mean, it's not bad. It wasn't that bad. I liked it. It was
better than
relatively
Scream 3,
good.
and
Yeah,
I
better
still
than
like
Scream
Scream
3.
3.
Better than Scream 3. I like how I do like the opening and just talking about stab and then like everyone getting together and having the stab-a-thon.
Yeah, the stab movies in these last two movies really become a prevalent plot point.
Yeah, like it's it's just this thing that just keeps coming through. It really and it helps tie everything together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a definitely a watchable movie that should be watched. I think.
For me, this was a movie, when it came out, and maybe for a few years after, I thought it was like Scream 1, Scream 4. Like I was like, Scream 4 was like my shit for a long time. And as the years have gone on and I've grown more and my tastes have changed, Scream 2 just keeps rising and Scream 4 is kind of lowered.
Yeah.
Scream 1 will always be, the peak of the mountain. But like Scream 2 was like one of my least favorites. And now it's like one of my, it's the upper echelon, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because Scream 4, like I said, they really could have fleshed out the newer characters. We spend a lot of time with Sid and Gale and Dewey. And, we should have probably spent more time with like Kirby and with Jill and with Charlie and Robbie. Like we should get to know them more so that as this whodunit unfolds, we care a little more.
Yeah. Like it's not like I would want any of those, old cast to die, in order to do that.
Yeah.
But
like they don't need they're not, if you wanted to do a new trilogy, which we'll talk about with the new one, you need to slim down. They're still a part of it. They're still here.
Yeah.
But you need to give the chunk of the story to the people who are supposed to now carry this forward.
Yeah.
We're slowly phasing out the old, getting in the new.
Yeah.
And instead, it's just like business as usual, focus on them, and we have the side characters.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's not a lot to complain about. I mean, they're great, but it
could have been nice. A little more deeply written.
Yeah. Maybe it's all
because the first movie it was just so well written and so well done.
Yeah.
And the second one, I thought the characters were pretty well written and very well done. Mickey is a great character. So I wish we got a little more of that.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's one I enjoy still. Like the whole Scream franchise, like we said, it's a very consistent and fun franchise.
Yeah, like I mean, you can like poke at negatives and stuff when comparing them to themselves.
But like compared to like most franchises, this thing didn't dip severely in quality. It's kind of impressive now that they're, it's been decades later and they've had now 5 whole films.
Yeah. Working on a 6.
Working on a 6 that's already like in production.
Yeah.
So, hopefully that's not where it goes off the rails. Hopefully we can
Yeah.
keep it going in the right direction.
Hopefully we see Stab 10.
And that's a nice little segue for us to hop on over now. Scream 5 came out January of this year, 2022. And I know when they announced this, which was like I think it was sometime last year,
Mhm.
they're like, Scream 5 is happening. I was like, what is the story now?
Yeah.
Because you tried the new thing in Scream 4, but obviously too much time has now passed. That can't be the new story now.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Now, I think what they ended up landing on is a good way of doing it, and I understand what they're trying to do moving forward. There's some things that I didn't like, which we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
and there's some things I really did like that they did. So, and this is still, it's only been out now for like, what, 6 months? It's still a fresh movie. I've now seen it 3 times though. So I've definitely had a lot of time to digest this, or 4 times now, because I watched it twice for the pod.
Yeah.
So I have seen Scream 5 a very decent amount to where I can wholeheartedly, as of now, I mean, maybe years down the line, my opinion will change. Sometimes they do with these things.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, let's dive right in. Scream 5. We open with a landline call. And I'm like, do people really still have landlines nowadays? Especially like suburban area people. Like, do they really have landlines? I know some people do keep a landline around. I just don't understand.
I don't even I see at home cell phones more than landlines, really. Like
it's cheaper.
Yeah.
To get, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people still have them. Probably not hooked up to the wall like that. It's probably one of those like VTech phones.
Yeah.
More so, but classic with the dial tone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a friendly group member that her drunken mom is friends with. And there's a lot of talk about like elevated horror, where she's like, oh, I like, like the Babadook and, movies that make you think. I like those horror films, because that is now the norm.
Yeah.
Really, though, like the norm of horror is like supernatural shit, but obviously they can't really go too much into that because it doesn't correlate to slashers.
Yeah.
She's like, slashers aren't deep enough, which is kind of funny because that's kind of a pun.
Yeah.
But the call turns into a throwback as goodness. Tara basically she locks the doors with her phone, which was in the trailer. And then she's texting Amber like, this is a weird guy on the phone. And it's like, it's not Amber. It's like, oh no, they've cloned Amber's phone. I wonder how many times this has happened in this franchise. And the killer has like video of her, and he's like, I'm gonna kill her if you don't like, do it, and it's like, okay, either there's 2 killers, which there are, or this was probably pre-recorded and the killer is now by you, not by Amber. But we're gonna get some stab trivia. It's not just horror trivia anymore, it's stab trivia. But she's Googling the answers, still giving her a pass though. You can probably hear the typing, like the tapping, and you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You got it. These modern times. But then she loses on the Billy and Stu trick question, because who was the killer in Stab? There was 2. So she opens the door and the killer's just standing right outside the door. So she just opens the door and he just slices her. Which, I don't know. I was just like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit. Like, I wasn't expecting him to be standing outside the door.
Yeah.
I was expecting like some tense, like she looks outside for a minute. No, it was like, boom, like we're in it. We're doing it. And he also hacks her phone to unlock the doors. So every time she's like locked, it's like unlocked, locked, unlocked. And he's like, do you think I got in the house for you relocked the doors? And it's like, bum bum. So he jump scares and like stabs like through her hand.
Yeah.
And breaks her leg, like steps on her leg. So like it's pretty visceral here.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more like they just want to like give pain now instead of just
Well, like
killing
if you
in
were
a way.
attacked by a knife wielding killer in your house,
Yeah.
probably would go something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and it looks like she would have been killed here.
Yeah.
Because we get the slash opening,
Mm-hmm.
but plot twist: the person in the opening survives the opening this time.
Yeah.
But there's a reason, because this drives her sister Sam to want to come back to Woodsboro.
Yeah.
Sam and her boyfriend Richie like work at a bowling alley or something. And basically Richie's kind of like the comedy character. A lot of the times he's like always cracking jokes and making puns. But yeah, basically Sam is Tara's sister, and they've been estranged because of some traumas. But her sister's been, brutally almost killed, and their mom's not coming home yet.
Yeah.
You'd think that she would be like, "Oh, your daughter just got brutally attacked in your house. You should probably not stay on a business trip."
Yeah.
But nevertheless, shitty parenting aside, and Richie insists on coming for moral support, but that should just be a red flag.
Yeah.
And now our new teens meet at school for discussions because, that is now the norm. Chad and Liv are a couple, and he talks about like wanting her to get like a tracking app on her phone because with all this stuff going on, they should be able to find each other. And I'm like, that's just never.
I know.
It's never a thing you should do. Like,
No.
it's that can only lead to bad things.
Yeah, if your significant other asks
to
you
track you,
to track you, like
that's
don't
a no.
you gotta leave
That's
really
a no.
at that point.
So
like, God damn.
as soon as he said that, I was like, I don't trust him. Like,
Yeah, turn off the notification, the locations on like your Snapchat and shit. By the way, everyone needs to do that. Don't let people know where you're at. Jesus.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, Chad, no, don't do that.
Yeah, no.
And then we also meet Wes, who's the son of Deputy Judy. And she's now went from like person who's into Dewey to like the overprotective mom.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's the sheriff because, we'll find out what happened to Dewey in a minute. Yep. But, she's now the big man on campus. Mm-hmm. So we also meet Mindy, who is Chad's twin, but she's also like the new Randy. She's always talking about the tropes, how these things work, because it feels like she just really loved her uncle. Yeah. And like after he died, she's like, I'm gonna continue his work.
Yeah, and I like that. Mm-hmm. I do. I like it.
There's a lot of love and respect for the past in this movie of like the original people.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's good. So Wes is like, everyone needs to arm up, which, never a bad idea.
No.
You should all be prepared. Meanwhile, we meet Creepy Vince, who's like, him and Liv had a thing once, and he's like, you should leave this Chad guy and come hang out with me in my sports car and my mustache. And he's obviously meant to be an early red herring.
Yeah.
Because you would be like, okay, I guess if one of us is a murderer, it's probably that guy.
Yeah.
So, but as soon as like, I'm so like jaded now by horror plots that like as soon as he showed up and when I was in the theater, I was like, yep, that's not the killer. That's too obvious.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why he would be, because it would be so obvious that we wouldn't expect it. Meanwhile, Sam's freaking out because Richie has never seen Stab, which probably should be a red herring or should be a red flag because everyone in this franchise has at least seen Stab once.
Yeah.
But it's on Netflix because you got to reference the new times.
Woo woo.
Uh,
Wonder how much Netflix paid to get that.
right. And so she's like, he's like, it kind of sounds like Halloween. And she's like, nah, it's kind of like Halloween, but not really. Which, another dig on Scream.
Mhm.
Fun meta humor. Uh, so Amber's like super standoffish with Sam about like her coming back. It's like no one wants you here, but your sister doesn't need you. And as soon as that happened, I'm like, I don't trust Amber.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like that was a weird interaction. I don't like that. So talk about their mom not coming home, which again,
Mhm.
fucked up. And Sam basically trying to comfort Tara about the fact that she was almost brutally murdered. Meanwhile, the others meet at like is it a bar that they meet at?
It looks like one.
It looks like a bar, but like they're
Yeah.
clearly high school kids. Well, I mean, they're they're 20s, but they're playing high school kids. So I don't
Yeah.
know if like they let these kids use like the pool tables at certain hours. I don't know, but it felt weird. I was like, what are these kids doing at a bar?
Yeah. They all
Uh,
got fake IDs.
yeah,
No one knows a thing.
that or they're like, fuck it, these kids are probably gonna get murdered. Let's just let them
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah. It's like we all know where we're at.
Yeah, we're in Woodsboro. Everyone just needs to drink all the time. Basically, they also talk about Amber hating Sam for leaving. She
Mhm.
also used to be their babysitter, which they kind of joke about. And Mindy calls out all the motives because she's the Randy character.
Yep.
But she's like, not you, Liv. You're way too boring to be
Mhm.
a murderer. You're lucky to really be a part of the cast. And then Chad confronts Vince for being all creepy, and they get kicked out because Vince pulls a knife on them. Seems a little odd.
Yeah.
But Vince gets murdered by his own car. Not like literally by his car, but like he's beside his car as he gets murdered.
Mhm.
Stabbed in the neck too, which is like a very gory way to go, where he's like
Mhm.
jabs him and he's just like bleeding out. It's like gurgling.
Yeah.
And they play Red Right Hand during the song. Yeah, so it's a throwback again. You gotta have Red Right Hand, even if it's just the instrumental or you
Yeah.
do a remix. Doesn't always have to be the same song, but it's like a staple now. You
Yeah.
gotta throw it in somewhere. Meanwhile, Richie is watching the Stab movies on Netflix. Not sponsored. And Sam is attacked in like a waiting room, like eating like somewhere vending machines.
Yeah.
She's also haunted by like Billy Loomis because it's her father. Not a fan of this plot point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's craziness is hereditary.
Essentially, is what they're saying, but also like it's weird that she sees her dad like when he died at the end of Scream, like
Mhm.
covered in blood and things.
Yeah.
Seems weird that that's like the mental picture she has.
Yeah.
Uh, Nice that Skeet Ulrich gets to play the character again, just like de-aged.
Yeah.
But it's very weird. He just pops up and he's like, "You lead into your young Skywalker. Use your rage." Is essentially what he's there to do.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And I think the future movies are gonna lean into this. And I don't like that concept.
Yeah.
So every time he shows up in the movie, I'm like, fuck, this thing again.
Yeah.
It's not like, I know we're trying to connect people to the original, but this connection's a little weird. It's like, oh yeah, during the events of Scream, he also fucked this chick who got pregnant and we never mentioned or ever. But now, he's got a kid. Yeah, I don't know. Just I don't know. That plot point, it just feels unnecessary to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was attacked by a killer who knows her past. And he was hiding behind the door. just waiting. And but she pushes like a table into him, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
The killer disappears per usual.
Mm-hmm.
And Richie accuses Amber, and Amber accuses Richie, which is funny because, spoiler alert, they are the killers. And so it's like they're blatantly accusing each other to try to be like, well, it couldn't be us together because I don't trust her and she doesn't trust me. So come on.
Yeah.
There's a fun little like thing, like when you go back and you rewatch and you're like, oh, that was actually pretty smart of them to be like, to point out holes and shit.
Yeah.
But as far as who actually attacked, it's probably Richie because Amber was out with the group at this point. So
Yeah.
his Netflix alibi not super strong.
Mm-hmm.
Judy not a fan of Sam in her past, but of course she wouldn't be because she's like the overprotective cop mom, and this girl was like the bad girl who did a bunch of drugs and left town.
Yeah.
A little harsh on her, but at the same time, like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam then just decides to dump on Tara about Billy being her dad, and that like she found out and accidentally caused their parents' divorce, and like maybe when she's recovering from almost being murdered is not the time to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Especially when you yourself were just attacked by also a killer. Maybe you should focus on that and not this shit from your past.
Yeah.
I know she's like, you should probably hear it from me in case it comes up, but like maybe a different time. Maybe tomorrow. We've had some time to digest the attack that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like when I watched this in theaters, I was like, what are you doing now? Now's the time? So Tara, understandably, not super happy with the information. But Richie's like, hey, I'm going to stay. I'm going to help you get through this. And I'm like, don't trust that. Then we check in with Dewey, who's now kind of like a washed up drunk.
Yeah.
Which is why he's not a cop anymore. But he still watches Gale every morning. And you also see in the background, he has Tatum's ashes like up on the mantle. So it's like a nice little throwback there as well. So basically, Dewey's always the character we relate to the most. And like, he got a divorce. He lost his job. He's kind of down on his luck.
Mm-hmm.
But, this kind of makes sense for his character.
Yeah.
Because he would kind of be the one who spirals if Gale were to leave, essentially. Meanwhile, Richie and Sam go to him for help.
Yeah.
And he's like, just listen, I'm not a part of this. And they're like, yeah, you probably will end up being a part of this. And he's like,
yeah.
All right, fair enough. And he's like, just don't trust the boyfriend. The boyfriend's usually not trustworthy, except for that time in Scream 2 that he was.
Yeah.
So don't trust the love interest. That's never a good idea. Turns out he's right. But Richie's always cracking jokes and being like, hey, fuck this guy. So Dewey calls Sid and is like, listen, whatever happens, do not come here. Mm-hmm. You have a family now. You have kids. Stay the fuck away from Woodsboro. I'm going to handle this, I think.
Yeah. Do his best.
Yeah. And then he just texts Gale like, ooh, hey, killer back in town. Also, how are you? Like, it's a fun little like awkward text, because it's classic Dewey stuff.
Yeah.
So he gets his sheriff tools. He puts some pants on, gets a gun, which Richie points out. He's like, we're supposed to trust this guy because he puts on some pants and arms himself. Like, he's still not a cop. And then we get some more backstory on the characters. The twins are Randy's niece and nephew. We also get the Martha cameo here. So we get Randy's sister in it for a minute. And then we get accusation roulette where everyone's like, you're the killer. No, you're the killer. It would make sense if you were. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about it being a requel because Stab 8 was just so awful and hated, trying to be elevated horror. It's not a slasher. So they, just like every other horror, it's not quite a sequel. It's not quite a remake. It's it's new, but it honors the past. It's like Halloween 2018. We gotta gotta kick it back, which is what they're doing with Scream.
Yeah.
And also, apparently, with these movies, you just stop numbering them and start calling them what the original was called. Because this movie also called Scream. I'm gonna always call it Scream 5, but it's just Scream. Hollywood, stop fucking doing this. It's very confusing when you run a podcast. Yeah. And that's why I have to put the years after all the movies now.
Yeah. I mean you can just put the numbers.
It's numbers fine. On. Scream 5 is fine. I get that you're like, but it's new, but it's the same timeline. It's the same. Halloween, I give a little more credit to because there's a bunch of timelines and it does get a little confusing, and maybe calling it Halloween 14 isn't what you want.
Yeah.
But
like Halloween H2O.
Right. What like you could have called it like Halloween Returns or something. You could have been something better. But this Scream 5 makes total sense. You should have done that.
Yeah.
So it bugs me, but it's a requel. Yeah. So there's new rules now. It always goes back to the original. That's what new movies do. They always got to call on the original. Also, it's got to be something that the fans will love. Fan service, big time. Whoever these killers are fans, and they're taking the franchise into their own hands this time. Bit goofy. And Sam, you're the new star, whether that means you're Sydney or Billy. Because that is also like the through line with this movie. They're like, is Sam really the killer? Is the flashbacks of her father going to make her snap and murder people?
Like that's it's obviously a reason for me to not think that personally. Like,
it's too clear cut.
Yeah.
So Sam storms off, almost wrecks, because again, everyone just forgets how to drive in horror films.
They're too stressed.
Yeah. Like, this day, and just start swerving left and right. Like, fucking, how to drive a car. Billy gives her a pep talk. Like, yes. Cut down the younglings. So basically, we get a jump scare by Wes, who was just jogging. Because, like, the door's open. And Judy's like, why is the door open? So basically, Judy goes off to get some dinner, and the killer calls her and is like, I'm gonna kill your son in the shower. And there's some fun lines where she's like, I don't like horror movies. I like Disney movies and musicals. I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what Deputy Judy would watch. Like, that was very on character, very on brand. But it is a very tense scene because, like, we see, like, Wes, like, taking a shower and setting up dinner, and she's, like, racing. Her reckless driving makes sense, but also she's a cop. She can turn on her sirens and all laws are gone. But, it's a mother who knows her son is in danger and is desperately trying to get there before something bad happens. So at its core is a very tense, relatable horror scene, but with a twist, because she gets there, she books it up the driveway, and boom, killer comes from the side and gets her, which I did not see coming. And then in the house, we just get huge tension that almost goes too long, but doesn't quite go long, as long. It doesn't overstay the welcome. Yeah, because it's like he opens the fridge and he closes it, but there's no one there. Yeah. And then he goes over here and there's no one there. Yeah. To the point where you're almost like, all right, is nothing going to happen? And then, boom, killer comes out of nowhere, stabs Wes in the neck.
Mm.
So Judy, dead. Wes, dead. All hell breaks loose. No more sheriff in town. There's also a lemon squares reference where on the fridge it says there's lemon squares in the fridge.
Oh, nice.
Yes, deep cuts. So yeah, gory death with like the through the neck part.
Mm-hmm.
Thought Wes was going to be a bigger character in this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised he died so early.
I guess it's what movie needs, surprises.
Yep. But I like that what they did with the Judy character, like using the fact like hurt, like again, that was a very good, well done scene. You know, that and the opening are probably the strongest tense horror scenes that we have in this movie. So then Gail shows up because we got, keep throwing back the characters.
Yep.
And she sees Dewey and she's like, a text? You let me know this was happening through a text. Classic Dewey and Gail stuff.
Yeah.
And then they talk about why it didn't work because Dewey can't be a city guy and Gail can't be a small town girl. We literally what we've been doing the past 3 movies.
Yeah.
Then we get a cameo by the YouTube channel Dead Meat as they talk about Stab 8.
Yep. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
Richie is also studying the movies because he's like, hey, I want to know how this shit plays out. Yeah. And so Tara's alone again, which is never good.
Nope.
Dewey goes with Sam, but Tara like goes to leave the bed and like the hallway's dark and then she sees a mangled cop.
Mm.
But she checks for the gun, so smart, but it's gone. And Richie shows up and gets his arm sliced, which is always a sign that that's the killer. The only person who got an arm sliced that wasn't the killer was Derek in 2.
Yeah.
He's the exception to like everything. But like everyone else that gets an arm slice is the murderer.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. Because why would the killer just be like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, for real.
You get some of that. So clearly it's Amber that's doing these because Richie got his arm cut and is in the scene still. And so the killer is like, so Sam, you gonna save your sister or this guy you've been dating for a little bit? Well, she takes like a while to decide.
I like if I was a sibling, I'd be a little offended.
Yeah, it's like, hey, how long's this fucking guy been around? Like, come on now.
It's like just because he fucking dicks you down, does that mean he's allowed to lie? Allowed to be alive? Thanks.
Oh, but the killer gets brutal. Like he's like, hammering on Tara's wounds and shit.
Yeah.
So Dewey, of course, can't land a shot.
No.
Faces off with the killer. Yeah. He's too drunk.
Yeah.
But he shoots him in the chest, which again, it's like, Dewey, you should know by now. It's the head. You got to go for the head.
Yeah.
And he's like, you guys go. I gotta take the mask off. I gotta end this thing. But Dewey then gets stabbed and like both sides and then like yanked.
Yes.
Brutal as hell. And Dewey actually dies here. Yep. Is the first like main character in a long time that meets an end, and it's very effective. Of the 3, Dewey made the most sense to die.
Yeah.
But it was still like, oh man, they really fucking did this.
Yeah. I mean, like we're not like, like we're used to, fan favorites dying, But yeah, Dewey definitely like.
Well, he's been almost dead so many times.
Yeah, it's like.
But this was like, when you see all the blood and shit falling, you're like, oh no, like this.
Yeah.
This is it. So he's dead, and then Gail shows up and has a breakdown because he's getting, carted out. Very dramatic moment. Again, as meta and goofy and jokey as this movie can get, it does hit those moments. And I think Scream 4 couldn't do at times, and that Scream 3 definitely didn't do. That Scream does is that, like, yes, there's some funny shit in here, but like, there's some emotional raw shit in here too.
Oh yeah,
and some good horror moments. So this was very effective because, as soon as Dewey dies, you're like, Gail's going to find out, and that's going to be rough.
Yeah.
This is also when Sydney shows up.
Mm.
Horrible timing because, he could
Yeah.
have came a little earlier and maybe he might not have died.
Yeah, because jeez. Oof.
But also, he just told you not to come, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, I'm on my way.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
I'm going."
It's like I'm fucking invincible. What do you mean?
So Sam also tries to comfort Gail
Mhm.
because she's like, he saved us, and like, yeah, that's what he does. He's always doing that. Tara, though, too high on pain meds to give a shit about what's going on. There's a fun little joke there. And the sisters promise they're going to stay together. No more splitting up. Like, they need each other in this moment. But Sid's like, hey, we should all stay together. And she's like, no, fuck you. We leaving.
Mhm.
There's a fun joke because Richie has so many jokes, you can't mention them all. But there's a fun one where he pulls up in the car and he's like, hi, yeah, we met. Never mind. Get in the car so I never have to see these people again. It's good. I love Richie's character. I do. Had a great time with this actor. Because he has a lot of charisma, and then at the end, when the psycho shit picks up, I think he does a good job of that.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since we've had someone that plays both the normal character and psycho character.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. But Sid puts a tracker on their car. I'm like, how the heck? I know she's married to a detective now, but like, does he just have trackers in his house? Like, she's like, oh, I'm gonna grab this before I go. Might need that. This is weird that she had that ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lazy writing point.
Yeah.
For why they meet up later.
She had to have just left the house thinking, I'm
gonna need this tracker.
Yeah, because I don't know any places you can just stop.
Was she gonna
like one.
Clip it to Ghostface or something? Like, I don't know what the goal was.
Yeah,
but it came in handy. But yeah, it caught me off guard in the theater when she's like, I put a tracker on her car, and I'm like, what? Are we in Mission Impossible now? A little much. But Tara's like, wait, need my inhaler. Because we have established her asthma a few times in the movie.
Yeah.
She's like, I have a backup at Amber's house where the party is.
Ooh.
Because again, you always got to have the third act party. That's where shit go down.
Yep.
Whether that's a stabathon or a tiny little get-together, there has to be a get-together at the end where all the main characters are in a room and people die.
Yep.
It's classic.
It is.
Like everyone's doing shots here as well. And they toast to Wes, who died, but it's also a toast to Wes Craven. That's why Wes's character was named Wes. So it was like a double thing where it's like, this fucking guy that got us all here. Then there's a joke where Amber goes to the basement and Mindy's like, you should never go to the basement alone. That's a dumb move. And she's like, well, you should never go to the basement with someone who might be the killer. She's like, that's a fair point. You got me on that one.
Yeah.
Some fun dialogue back and forth.
Yeah.
Where Mindy's like pointing out shit, but sometimes someone will call her on it. She's like, you know what? Never thought about that. That's good. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
She's very strict with her rules.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Liv's like, hey, Chad, we should do it. And he's like, yeah, about that. I'm not like purely positive that you're not the killer. And I shouldn't just go hook it up with people without knowing that for sure. And it's like, fair.
Yeah.
Smart play. Maybe shouldn't have said that out loud. Maybe should have tried to bullshit an excuse. But then she storms off and he kind of looks at his sister like, damn it, you got in my head with this stuff. Now it cost me my chance.
Yep.
Very, very fun back and forth. So also they're watching Stab. So like we see like fake Randy's scene.
Yeah.
Chad goes after Liv, and Mindy's like, no, you don't go after her. That's stupid. And she's going to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then Liv accepts the location thing. And he's like, oh, I'll just go find. I'm like, no, she was so against it. You think after she's mad at you,
Yeah.
she's going to tell you to come find her?
Yeah.
What sense would that make? Why did you stop thinking all of a sudden? So he tracks it, and then the killer pops up and stabs him in the leg, or like the thigh. And he's like running around, and like the killer like comes out of the shed at one point, very tense.
Mm-hmm.
And you think he gets stabbed a few times, where you're like, oh yeah, he's fucking dead. So he's not though. Don't know how he survived that one, but he did. So Tara goes upstairs with Amber, which is never good. And Richie's like, all right, young adults. I think he says, like, did he say Gen Z?
Thanks.
I think he cuts on the lights and he goes, all right, Gen Z, it's time to get out of here.
Jesus.
Ew. And everyone's like, fuck you. And he's like, yep, go on. Then he goes to the basement for beer and he's like, hey, you want to come with me? Mindy's like, nope. He's like, well, she's like, but you were right to ask, which is another fun thing. I love Mindy's character. So Sid tracks them to Stu Macher's house, is where Amber lives. So that is now like 3 times she's been in a scene at Stu's house, because there was Stu's actual house, the recreation in Scream 3 of Stu's house, and still now Stu's house. Sid should be campaigning to have this house bulldozed.
Yeah.
Because that is the 3rd time now she's had to go here and face something. But I like the shot they do. They do this like little like winding side shot as she like, because it goes like up, be like reveal of like, oh shit, that's where some stuff went down. Now you're back. I liked that.
Carly, come here.
Meanwhile, Mindy is starting to get suspicious of Liv, who messes with her. I'm like, oh yeah, I could be the killer. Ha ha.
This is not the time to be making jokes.
Yep, not the time. And she's like, where's Chad? She's like, I don't fucking know. I was waiting for my Uber. It got canceled. Now I'm here. She's like, I don't like that. That doesn't sound good. And then there's this great scene where it's stabbed on the scene where Randy is on the couch saying, behind you, Jamie. And Mindy is watching that going, no, behind you, Randy. And the killer is actually behind her. So we have this like inception where there's now 3 things happening. But Amber sees the reflection in the television and is like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm in it now. And so she's facing off with the killer, not doing well. But she, fun scene because it was a good callback, but also like twisted to where he figures it out, unlike Randy. And Sam chases the killer off. And then Amber's like, it's Sam. Sam's the killer. And then Richie and Liv appear. And they're like, Liv's like, it's not me. And Amber's like, I know. And shoots Liv right in the head. Like, the girl who plays Amber does a really good job of like bouncing back and forth. And Richie tries to blame Tara. He's like, hey, how long have you been gone? Maybe she snapped and now she's the killer. Because where is she? So Sid and Gale show up armed. And they walk up and they see Amber, who plays victim, and it's like, oh, fuck it, shoots Gale. I'm like, Gale, you weren't expecting a gun? Like, you've been shot multiple times. You should be, and you came armed. Like, why were you not ready to go? So Gale's immediately like out of it for a minute. So Sid enters deja vu throwback scene. And Sam finds Tara tied up and struggles to trust her.
Mm.
And the killer taunts Sid on the phone, but it's like, come on, she knows the phone bit.
Yeah.
So she shoots Richie by accident. And takes the killer over the stairs. And then Richie gets the knife and the gun and stabs Sam because he's the other killer. Ooh. Basically, they want to make a better Stab 8. Amber and Richie met on like Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Because more internet references.
Yeah.
Sam's the fall person because she's Billy Loomis's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Amber stabs Sid, but again, no one ever stabs Sid enough. They just kind of poke her.
Yeah.
And then Sam lets Tara run. So it's like, actually, I did trust her, and you don't know where she is. And then Tara beats the shit out of Amber.
Mm-hmm.
Sam gets free. Sid and Gale then set Amber on fire because she pleads like, hey, I'm just a product of the generation. Gale's like, fuck you. You killed Dewey.
Yeah.
So they burn her with hand sanitizer, which is like kind of a COVID joke, honestly. Like kind of an interesting way to do it.
Mm.
So Sam gets free. Sam and Richie tumble down the stairs. They have a fight. She gets the knife and she starts stabbing the shit out of him because Billy's like, yeah, that's how we do it in this family.
That's how it works. We're going all the way back to Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. The saw is family. And he's like, what about my movie? And it's like, yeah, your movie's over, bro.
Yeah.
So they double tap. Twins are alive. And Gail's like, I'm going to write a book about a sheriff that helped people. It's like, maybe if you could have done that before he died.
Yeah. Helped.
But, we have enough people survived in the new cast for Scream 6.
Mm-hmm.
Gail could show up. Sydney's not going to be in it because Nev Campbell declined. So we'll see where it goes. But there's potential. And Sam could end up being the killer at some point. All right. So for trivia, it's confirmed that Sid lives on Elm Street.
Huh.
So that was fun.
Nice.
Gail referenced her bad bangs in her first scene. Because, always got to reference the past there.
Yeah.
Vince's knuckle has Elm Street numbers. It's like his knuckle tattoo is like the house number from Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of Elm Street references for Wes Craven. And the photo Dewey has of him and Gail, it's actually a real like vacation photo of David Arquette and Courtney Cox.
Okay.
So familiar faces. Melissa Barrera, who played Sam, was in the Heights. That was the only other movie she did. It came out last year. Amber was played by Mikey Madsen from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Mindy was played by Jasmine Savoy Brown. This is early for her career, so we'll see where she goes. Chad was played by Mason Gooding from the newer movie Moonshot. Wes was played by Dylan Minnette from 13 Reasons Why, Don't Breathe, and Let Me In. And Richie was played by Jack Quaid from The Boys, Hunger Games, Star Trek, Lower Decks. And Tara was played by Jenna Ortega, who's had a hell of a year. Because this year alone, she was in X, Studio 666, and The Fallout. And then she was also in Big City Greens and Stuck in the Middle. So she's doing a lot of work recently, particularly in the horror genre.
Yeah.
That's literally 3 horror films she's had this year. So on to the final thoughts, Cole. Well, this is a new movie. This was the first time you've seen it.
Yeah.
So what are your final encapsulation thoughts here on Scream 5?
It's nice, coming back to it, after like, what is it, 11 years since the previous one. So long wait. I love seeing David Arquette. I love seeing him. and I share your, thoughts on, the whole Billy Loomis freaking like hallucination, like haunting thing. That's like that. I don't really like that very much. I don't like that being tied in very much. Um, the cast was, overall really good. I liked them. Um, I'm not a big fan of Dylan Minnette personally.
Hmm.
He's like I don't know, like his role in 13 Reasons Why and the little bit I watched of it. Like I don't know, like maybe I'm just thinking on that too much, but he was like a little flat in there. So like seeing him, it's like he just looks like that, you know, that cut out teen like teenager dude to me a little bit. But overall nice. I did. I mean, I was expecting, legacy character deaths. That doesn't make Dewey's death any easier to handle. um, it was like, I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes, though. And I do hope they kind of dial back on the the reaching for the old and bringing it in so much. And I hope they don't bring in the Billy Loomis hallucinations
Mhm.
as much anymore. I hope that doesn't really come too much of a plot point personally, but I mean they can make it work, and I hope they do. If they do go that route, it was good. It was a good movie. It's really it's nice going back and
Mhm.
seeing how Scream is like how like the Scream of 2022 of today.
And for Scream 6, they have confirmed that Kirby will be in it. So
No, nice.
that'll be fun to have, her return.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't confirmed that she lived at the end of Scream 4,
No.
but now we have confirmation. So my thoughts on Scream 5 is, it's probably second from the bottom for me in Scream, but that's not a diss to the
Yeah.
movie. Like I said, there's a lot of moments where it hits like tense horror. Like that
Mm-hmm.
opening scene was probably one of the better opening scenes we've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Built a lot of tension. The Judy and Wes thing, the scenes were really good. I loved the characters. I thought we actually fleshed out characters in this, and
Yeah.
that I felt like connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
Some more than others, but like even like Richie, who I was pretty sure was the killer. Amber, I called pretty early, but
Mm-hmm.
Richie, like I accepted he was the killer, but he was still one of my favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
So I connected with a lot of them, which hasn't happened probably since like Scream 2 for me.
Yeah.
Uh, the Billy Loomis thing really threw me off. I don't know why you could have had her be Billy's daughter without having weird visions of him.
Yeah.
Uh, it's probably going to come up later. It would be weird if they didn't, since they
Yeah.
included it so heavily in this one. I just hope that like you said, we've touched on the past now, but like
Mm-hmm.
now it's their time.
Yeah.
We don't even need Gale in the next one
No.
because we know Sydney's got to be in it, but we don't need Gale. Kirby's fine to throw in and still be interesting. So I'm very curious to see where they go,
Mm-hmm.
and that where we go will kind of overall tell where this one lands, because this is part of a bigger story to be told in the future, I assume.
Yeah.
But not a bad way to bring this franchise back.
No.
And it's been fun covering the
Mm-hmm.
Scream franchise. It's not like some of the other franchises we've covered where there's some really low lows.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward now to going to do something different, because next time on Film Vomit, we're covering Caddyshack 1 and 2. Caddyshack is a pretty revered comedy, and Caddyshack 2 is like what no one ever talks about ever. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about that and to take a little break from horror on this podcast for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it this time. Stay tuned next time for the movies I just spoke about. Stay safe, everyone. Stay nerdy.